Okay. Welcome, everyone. My name is Jayant Kapatker, and I'm speaking live from Pune in India. And I would like to welcome each one of you to this webinar. The subject of our webinar today is Doctrine of Karma. So let's get the ball rolling. Doctrine of Karma. What does karma mean? Karma means action. That's the definition for karma. To understand action, we're going to cover different aspects of action. We're going to discuss what is karma, what is action. We're going to understand then what is karma phalas, what are the results of action. And lastly, we're going to understand the practice of action, which is known as karma yoga. So these are the three major topics we're going to cover under the doctrine of karma. So let's start with understanding what is karma. Karma is action, like I mentioned to you. And we all know we are doing action day in, day out, right? From morning we get up till we go to sleep, we are doing action. And most of the action has a result. And the result is one thing which we are very interested to understand. And that is one thing which is unknown to us. Because the results can be any one of the four following options. The result is as expected. The result is worse than expected. The result is better than expected. The result is totally different. So my Swamiji, when he used to explain this concept, he used to give the following example to explain this subject properly, to introduce this topic. If you are a person trying to cross the road to catch a bus in the morning, you cross the road and your bus is there and you get into the bus. And so the result is as expected. And you cross the road, but you miss your bus. Then the result, what you get is worse than what you expected. And then you have also, you cross the road and you have a friend there sitting, waiting for you in a car. You get in his car and go to office. So the result you get is much better than what you expected. And lastly, you have a result which is totally different. For example, you cross the road and you meet with an accident. And instead of going to your office, you land up in the hospital there. So these are the four different variables which are there for any action, the results of any action you take there. Which one of it will take hold? It is unknown there. It seems to be there is some hidden variable by which the results are given there. So we need to understand what is that hidden variable and who is that provider of the hidden variable. Yeah. Okay. Who is the giver of the results? Like I mentioned to you, there is some hidden variable which provides a result. So who is that person which is the giver of the results? Bhagavad Gita in chapter 2, verse 47, explains this concept brilliantly. It says, you have authority or control over the action you do, but you have no authority or control over the results of action there. So it basically means that you can do the action, but you have no control on the results of the action there. And this verse, chapter 2, verse 47, is one of the most quoted verses from Bhagavad Gita. So this statement looks quite obvious that you can do the action, but you have no control on the results. But we do not really readily accept these results. So who's the person who gives the results? The results is given by Karma Phala Data, and that is Ishwara. So Ishwara is the giver of all results. You do the action and the Ishwara will give you the results basically. So that doesn't mean that Ishwara is a macro manager sitting on a table somewhere and watching everyone doing action and then deciding whom to give the punya karmas and whom to give you papa karmas. So Ishwara is not, has no discrimination there. In fact, we all have a human will by which you can do action. Ishwara also has a will, but his will is very different. By his will, he has a law of natures, and the law of nature is what is running the universe. The laws by which the full universe is operational is because of his laws, and that is his will. He doesn't have a normal will like a human being where we can decide yes, no, good, bad, but his will is according to the law of nature, and the doctrine of karma is part of that law. So that Ishwara is not like a macro manager. He creates the laws And under the laws, once he starts executing, he doesn't do anything much because the law is what takes hold. So we understand the result is given by Ishwara, who is the doer of the action. Ego, which is our inner self, is the karma phala data. The karma karta is the doer of action or the doer agent of action there. So how does it work? The ego interacts with the object vrittis. The object vritti means that we have five senses, and through the five senses we have waves, images coming from the outside world. It could be your eyes. It could be, I think some people have not muted, Maya, why don't you mute everyone? I think there's people not muted.
You should be careful because then you will also get muted.
No, I'll unmute myself then. I think some people, okay, that's much better now. Okay, can you hear me, Maya?
Yes.
Okay, good. So what happens is that the ego interacts with the object vrittis. These object vrittis are vrittis which comes from the external world through our five senses. We have five senses in which the eyes, ears, the nose, the the tongue, and the skin. And this vrittis come through the five senses into your mind. Vrittis are waveforms. They come in the waveforms in the mind. Then the ego interacts with these object vrittis basically. And what does the ego do with the object vrittis? It performs either like or dislike of the vritti basically. That's what the ego modifies the waveform with raga or dvesha. Raga means it likes the waveform. Dvesha means it dislikes the object basically. And it is forced to react to this object vritti. It has to say yes or no to the vritti. Yes means it likes vritti. No means it dislikes vritti. Even a single cell reacts to such modification basically. If you put a single cell in front of sugar, it will be attracted to the sugar because it likes the sweetness. If you put the same single cell in front of a vinegar, it will repel itself. It will dislike the vinegar. So even a single cell has a method of reacting with the object vritti which is provided there. So the ego is what is by the sheer force of likes and dislike, it is taking action there. So how do you define karmas? The interaction between the ego and the object is not karma. The response of like and dislike is karma. This is very important to understand. It is not just the sheer interaction of ego with the object is not karma. It is the response of raga and dvesha, like and dislike, is what is really karma. Let's take some examples to make sure this is fully understood. Talking is natural. God has given us a mouth to talk. So now talking is natural. That is no karma in talking. Only when you talk good or bad about things or people and objects, that is what is karma. The good and bad talking about things is what is karma. But talking by itself is natural. That is your part of your body functional basically. Same way, walking is natural. We have two legs and we can walk there. And sometimes when you kill a bug purposely on your walk, that is a karma because you are purposely killing the bug there. But if without your knowledge, if you are walking and if you kill the bug, there's no karma there because there's no like and dislike. You haven't interacted with that object basically. Without your ego, you have not reacted there. So that also is not karma. Just walking is natural, but if you kill a bug purposely, that is karma. Listening is natural again. We have 2 ears. We are listening is very natural. If you keep listening to music, everything is all natural. But if you show irritation about something, if you hear someone talking, it's like we're sitting in the airport and a lot of noise is there and you get irritated, that is what is karma then. Because your irritation part of it, which you're adding to the noise coming through into your ears, that irritation becomes your karma basically. And same way, watching is natural. You got 2 eyes, you can watch. You cannot avoid watching because that's a gift of God to you and you can watch. But if you make comments of what a good shirt he's wearing or what a bad clothes he's wearing or what an ugly face he's got, those sort of comments you make, that is karma there. So you need to understand that karma is just is not the interaction with which you do day to day. It is the response of like and dislike, which is karma. So that we now understand what exactly is karma, we need to understand the results of karma. Karma obviously has a result. Whatever action you do must have a result. That's a law of nature. Every action must have a reaction. It must have a result. Even the Newton's third law of motion says that for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So the action, if action is very forceful, the reaction also will be forceful. If the action is not forceful, the reaction will not be forceful. It's just like a tree bark. If you rub your arm onto the tree bark softly, the tree bark will also rub back softly. If you rub your tree bark on your arm on the tree bark very intensely, it will rub back very intensely, and you might bleed. Your arm may bleed because of the intensity of there. So every action must have an equal and opposite reaction there. And we all just seen that the ego is the doer of the action. The ego is the person is doing the action by adding the raga and dvesha to the objects. So hence the ego must be the receiver of the results also. So if you do a good action, you will get good results and it will lead to punya karmas. If you do bad actions, it will lead to bad results and that will lead to papa karmas. There is always a confusion between how do you define a good action or a bad action there. Because in some cases, it can be a very gray area. In most cases, it can be obvious what's a good action and what's a bad action. But sometimes it can be very difficult to discern because it can be in the gray area. For example, a knife now. A knife, we all know, is a very is a bad thing. If a criminal uses a knife and murders a person or kills a person, that obviously is a bad action there. But the same knife, if a surgeon cuts a person, which is again harming that person, but he uses it for surgery and saving the person's life, that's a good action there. Then telling a lie. We all know in the 10 Commandments, it says, you shall not tell a lie. But this itself sometimes can be very, in a gray area, it can lie. Sometimes telling a lie can lie in a gray area. Generally, telling a lie is a bad thing, but under certain circumstances, telling a lie may not be a bad thing. For example, if it's a merchant who's running with, so he got some money in his pocket on a bag, and he's running away from some thieves who is chasing him there, and that merchant lands into your house, and he comes into your house and he takes refuge in your house, and then these thieves are searching for that person there, so they come knocking at your door. So what do you tell that person, those thieves? You don't tell them that that person is hiding under the bed, obviously, because that's the truth. But you will tell a lie. They're saying that person is, that merchant is running, is gone some other place. So that's a lie you're telling. But under those circumstances, that lie can make sense, sort of thing. So how do you define, how do you understand what is good and bad action? The gold standard as taught by Vedanta is ahimsa paramo dharma. It means non-violence is the highest moral virtue. Non-violence is one thing which we need to appreciate and understand there. Mostly when you think of non-violence, we think in terms of action, physical action, hurting someone physically and those sort of things. But non-violence also includes thought. If you think bad thoughts, that is again a non-violence against that person about what you're thinking. Even your speech, it has to be a non-violence. If we talk very harsh language, that also is non-violence. So non-violence includes all physical things, all mental things, and speech and other things basically, which are covered as non-violence. But if you really think about it, complete non-violence is also at times almost impossible basically. For example, a lot of people talk about this example. If you're a meat eater and you obviously kill an animal to eat your meat, that obviously is non-violence in some ways. But in the same way, a vegetarian who also eats plants and fruits, but they also come out of plants and trees. So that in a way, you're harming the plants also basically. So that it's 100% non-violence is at times almost impossible sort of thing. So the goal is to minimize harm. Whatever minimum harm you can cause and take action, that should be the strategy for non-violence as such. When many options are available, we need to choose an option with minimum harm. So that's how is a way to discern between good action and bad action, is to minimize harm. You will see, is this causing harm to people? And if it is causing harm, it has to make sure that if you have options, you try to minimize the harm basically, because 100% non-violence in terms of thought, speech, action can sometimes be almost impossible sort of thing. So the goal is to minimize harm. So the results of action, if you do an action, you obviously, like I mentioned earlier, you need to get your results, karma phala. As Vedanta teaches, there are two different types of results you get. One is a drishta phala, which is the seen result, and the other one is adrishta phala, which is the unseen result. So seen result means if you do an action, you get the results immediately. You see the immediate results immediately. Adrishta phala, which is the unseen result, is something which action you take, the results are not seen immediately. The results come much later on. Let's try to understand the difference between these two, seen result and unseen result. Drishta phala and adrishta phala. Let's take some examples to make sure we understand the difference between the two. If you give $1,000 to a charity, what is the seen result? The seen result is that you are now poorer by $1,000 because you are given $1,000 away to charity. So that's a seen result straight away. The unseen result is that you have done some punya karma and you will get the benefit of that punya karma in the future. The other example is insult your friend. If you use some harsh language and you insult your friend very dramatically, your friend is very offended and he starts crying. The seen result is your friend starts to cry. That you see obviously because your action has created that the friend to start crying. That's a seen result. The unseen result is because you have used harsh language and very dramatic language. It's the unseen result will be you have done some papa karma, and that you will see the results in the future. The other example is you drop your glass from 10 feet. If you drop your glass from 10 feet downwards, the seen result is the glass starts to fall. The unseen result will be after a few seconds when the glass hits the ground. Will it shatter or will it not shatter? So you can see that every action you do has two types of result. One result is immediately seen and known. The other result is unseen result, which is not known. Let's try to understand the unseen result part, because that's very important to understand what and why you have unseen results basically. Because this action you take, sometimes the fruits do not ripen immediately. It takes time to ripen. So that's why the fruit is not fructifying still. It depends on the type of action you take, the impact of the ego upon the cosmic waveform. Like I mentioned to you earlier, there are object waveforms which come through the senses. In the same way, there is also a cosmic waveform. The cosmic waveform is the sum total of all the waveforms which are available in the universe for all the different objects. There is a waveform which is the cosmic waveform. Yeah. Can everyone hear me? Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, sorry, because my wife's Maya's screen is frozen. She was not very sure. Thank you. So let me continue. Sorry. Thank you very much. So when will this unseen results fructify? So the ego is interacting with the cosmic waveform. So the cosmic waveform is a sum total of all the waveforms which are available in the universe. All the objects which are there are part of the cosmic waveform. So if you kill a bug, the ripple in the cosmic waveform will be very minor. So the results of that you may get out very soon, because the waveform goes through the cosmic waveform, the interaction, and once the waveform comes to a steady state, that the waveform's interaction is complete, and then the results will come out sooner. For example, you start a war. If a king starts a war, a major war with another country, maybe sometime unjustly, then the ripple can be very long lasting. There will be people who will die in the war, and because of their death in the war, their immediate family is affected, and that family affecting could not only be for one generation, it could be for generations together. So the results of that action of starting a war, the ripple in the cosmic waveform can continue for a long time until all the ripple is complete, and the reaction to that, the results will only come once all the effect of your action goes through the ripple of the cosmic waveform. So you can see that the cosmic waveform and the ripple effect ensures that the unseen results don't fructify at the same time. The seen result, yes, it does fructify at the same time, but the unseen result does not. Now, so you can see that the unseen results, which are coming in long time. I've done that. Yeah. Sorry about that. Yeah. Till the fruit ripens, the unseen results are stored in the seed body. The seed body is our innermost core. Like we have seeds for plants, and the plant is fully a seed. A rose seed, for example, has a rose plant already built into it. Just 1 minute. Just 1 minute. Just 1 minute. I need to sort one thing out. Sorry about that. Okay, sorry about that. Okay. So the seed body is something which is our innermost core, like a seed from which a plant comes out, and the fruits come out of the seed. A full tree comes out of a single seed. The same way, we also have, every living being has a seed body. And from the seed body, everything emerges out from the seed body. The the subtle body, the gross body, the full universe comes out of the seed body. So these the results which are unseen are stored in the seed body. The results which have not been fructified still, they are stored in the seed body. So let's try to understand the storage of karma phalas. This, like I mentioned to you, all the unseen results are stored in the seed body. In fact, there are 3 different departments for this seed body, for the storage of the karmas. One is Sanchikta karmas, one is Pararabdha karmas, and one is Agami karmas. Let's try to understand these 3 different departments of the storage of the pending results. Sanchikta means accumulated. So these are results which are been pending results, which are accumulated over current life and also the past lives. So the total number of karmas which are pending results are all stored in Sanchikta karma under the heading of the department of Sanchikta karmas. So all the pending results which have not been fructified are stored in Sanchikta karmas. They say there are infinite number of karmas pending results. That according to Vedanta, they mention that you have had infinite number of lives, and because you have infinite number of lives, you have an infinite number of karmas pending results. So there's a huge infinite number of storage of karmas which are still pending results. And these karmas are a mix of papa karmas and punya karmas. So the mix is, you don't know the ratio, it depends on how your life has been in the past, but it always has some punya karmas and there are always some papa karmas. Then you have this prarabdha karmas. This means already begun. That means the karmas which are starting to fructify. So what happens is, from the Sanchita karmas, which is the sum total of all the karmas, a portion of those karmas are then set to fructify in this lifetime. So in a way, a storage, some certain number of karmas from your Sanchita are put into your seed body to fructify in this lifetime. And these karmas could be a mix of papa karmas and punya karmas. And the ratio can vary. So if you have generally a happy life in this lifetime, so that means you have a larger mix of papa punya karmas. And if the life is a struggle this lifetime, you have a much larger portion of papa karmas. So this is one of the reasons why a lot of people ask a question, why good people have bad actions, results, and why do good results come to bad people there? That is because everyone has a mix of papa karmas and punya karmas. And those papa karmas and punya karmas are fructifying in this lifetime. So you have to face them there. So everyone, nobody has 100% punya karmas in their storage area. Neither does anyone have 100% papa karmas in their storage areas, because all through your lifetimes, there is always sometimes you have not acted honorably or with dharma, or whatever the reason is, you told lies, or sometimes it could be major, sometimes minor. So you have a mix of both papa karma and punya karmas in your storage area. And a certain portion of them comes to be fructified in this lifetime. And that also is a mix of papa karma and punya karmas. So once your mix of karmas which you have for this lifetime, once that get over, those you have exhausted all those karmas, then the body usually dies basically. So the body dies when the karmas which have been meant to be fructified in this lifetime get fructified, and when that is complete, the body dies off because it doesn't have any value after that. Then lastly, you have a thing called Agami Karmas. Agami Karmas means, because right now you're facing the actions of your previous actions, previous karmas, and once you come in front of you, you react to them again there. And by reacting to those karmas which are pending results, you are creating new karmas, because your ego is acting out in this life also. So you are creating new karmas in this life also. And this karmas which you are creating, new karmas which you are creating, is again a mix of papa karmas and punya karmas. So some of these karmas are added to your prarabdha karmas, which will be rectified in this lifetime. And some of them will get into your sanchita karmas, and which will be added into a sanchita, which you will have to face in the future lifetime. So the goal of every person is to exhaust the karmas. That's the main goal of everyone. But you can see the problem. We have infinite karmas which are pending results. And exhausting infinite karmas will take infinite number of lives to do that. And every lifetime, we are exhausting only a finite number of karmas in one lifetime. Like I mentioned earlier, a certain portion of your karmas are put to be fructified in this life. And also we are adding new karmas every day. So by this, it looks a very difficult task of getting over your pending karmas. So you cannot exhaust your pending karmas, because it is almost an infinite number of them. So we are almost stuck in a never-ending cycle of life and death, because you have to be born, because you need to face your karmas. Any action you do must have a reaction. And to face the reaction, you must be born. So any pending karmas which are there, you must face. That's the law of nature, because every action must have a reaction. And unfortunately, the reaction doesn't come in this lifetime. It is coming in the future lifetime. So we have to face those action in the future. And so that's one of the driving force why life and death happens. You're always born because you still have pending karmas. There's no other reason why people are born again and again, because there are pending karmas and they need to face those pending karmas. So it looks like a very difficult task of getting out of this cycle. So what's the solution of exhausting these karmas? We mentioned earlier, the ego is the owner of the karmas. The only solution is to get rid of the ego. Getting rid of the ego is the only way to get rid of the karmas. So once you get rid of the ego, that means you don't have any association with the account of your pending karmas, because the owner of the ego, of these karmas, is your ego. So ego is not there, so you don't have any pending karmas there. The only solution is to realize your real self, your inner core, which is the underlying reality, because the underlying reality does not do anything. It doesn't have any account of pending karmas, because it doesn't do any action at all. The ego is doing all the action. The ego must face the the pending karmas. But if you do realize your real self, then you can get away from the pending karmas account. So how does one realize the real self? It's not an easy task. So we'll have to study understanding karma yoga. So if you're a student of Vedanta, Vedanta teaches there are 4 paths to achieve self-realization or achieve at least the goal of moksha there. One is Jnana Yoga, which is the path of knowledge. Then you have Bhakti Yoga, the path of devotion and self-surrender. The third is Raja Yoga, the path of meditation and contemplation. And the fourth is Karma Yoga, the path of action with right attitude. A lot of people have misconception that they feel that if they follow one of these paths, it is good enough there. No, that's not the way Vedanta teaches it. Vedanta teaches that you have to follow all 4 paths, but the mix can vary depending on your liking and disliking. Sometimes you may like more bhakti, less of meditation, or some people might like more meditation, less of bhakti. So all the 4 paths are very important to undertake, basically. So if you read the scriptures, most of the scriptures are talking about the first 3 paths. If you take Upanishads, all the Upanishads and Vedanta scriptures, they usually talk about Jnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, and Raja Yoga. There's very little literature which talks about Karma Yoga. The only major text which talks about Karma Yoga is Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita is, it does talk about many other things, but if you want to say what is the most major thing, what you learn from Bhagavad Gita, that what you learn is Karma Yoga. And if you think about it, Karma Yoga is the necessary starting point of your journey, spiritual journey. Because understanding Karma Yoga is the starting point before you can undertake the other types of yogas, basically. So Karma Yoga is very important to understand, and we will discuss that in a little bit more detail to understand what exactly we mean by Karma Yoga. Prerequisite to Karma Yoga. There are 2 prerequisites to Karma Yoga. One is living a life with positive values. Other one is living life with dharma. So most of us do live this sort of life. We live a life of positive values. We live an honest life. We live a sincere life. We respect other people. We are helping other people. And we have other such positive qualities, basically. And most people generally live this such a life. And living a life of dharma, again, is a very important trait. And generally, most people do tend to live within the aspects of dharma, which is ahimsa or non-violence, duty, responsibility, and other traits which are necessary for living a dharma. But people get confused. They think that they are living a life of positive values or they're living a life of dharma. So they think they're doing karma yoga. No, that is not karma yoga. Karma yoga, this is a sheer prerequisite there. If you're not living a life of positive value or you're not living a life of dharma, there's no way you can absorb the knowledge of karma yoga. So karma yoga is basically these steps I mentioned to you are the prerequisites to karma yoga. So let's try to understand how to implement karma yoga in our lives. It's a 4-step process. Let's understand the 4 steps. First step is attitude of karma yoga. Step 1 is karma phala data, giver of the fruit of action. We have already discussed this earlier. You have the authority or control on the action you do, but you don't have no authority or control on the results of the action. This is a very important step to understand, not only understand, but to absorb it, assimilate this knowledge within yourself there, that you can only do action and that Ishwara will give you the results based on the doctrine of karma. This is not, this is a stepping stone to understand karma yoga. So it's very important to understand that whatever action you do, you can only do the action. You have no other responsibility. You can only do the action, and whatever results is given is not under your control there. And that result we have discussed earlier is given by Ishwara. So this step is the stepping stone to understand karma yoga. So once if you're able to understand this step, we can go to step 2. Step 2 is prasada buddhi, or attitude of gift receiving. So most people do action expecting a positive result. If they prepare a business plan, they want the business plan to exactly follow what they put in the business plan. Or if they put their money into stock market, they want the stock to zoom through the market basically. So they want that thing to do done well. And so there's disappointment and frustration if these results are not expected. And they're so deep rooted to this likes and dislikes to objects, and so it's inbuilt there. So even they understand that the results are being given by Ishwara, they still do not fully accept if the results given to them. They feel frustrated. Why this is to me? Why this is happening to me? Those sort of things happen because you're not accepting the results from Ishwara. So how do you find a way to accept the results which have been given to you? For that, Bhagavad Gita teaches that you need to have a prasada buddhi, attitude of gift receiving. The way that works is that if you go to a puja or if you go to a temple, and after the puja is done or after the temple service is complete, they give you some prasad. It could be a sweet, it could be some dry fruits, and you accept that with such humility and reverence, basically. You think that prasad has come from God, you must eat it with real humility and reverence. Even if you may have diabetes or if you don't like dry fruits, you will take that with humility and reverence because you think that prasad has come from Ishwara. The same attitude must be taken towards the results of all your actions there. If you accept the results from your actions, if you accept the results of your action in the same way, then you can take it as a prasad. You accept the results as a prasad been given by Ishwara. So whatever action you do and the results which have been given by Ishwara, you accept it like a prasad. So that sort of attitude has to be inculcated as a second step on karma yoga, that you accept the results as a prasad, as a gift from Ishwara. It could be a good result, it could be a bad result. You need to accept it with like a prasad there. But this sometime you may say that, okay, I'm accepting it, but you still may have a lot of disappointment when your results are not as per your liking there. Because we are, like I mentioned to you, our attachment to likes and dislikes are so deep rooted. So happiness and disappointments are still present of what sort of gift the prasad you're getting from Ishwara as the terms of the results of your action there. So how to cultivate even mindedness? That means, it means that you are equally good for good results and you're equally good for bad results. You don't feel too elated or you don't feel elated at all when you have good results, and you also don't feel depressed and feel sad when you have bad results. How to achieve this particular goal? This goal can be achieved in the most important step out here is to increase your attachment to spiritual growth and lifestyle. You must start a devotional lifestyle. To do that, in fact, you must, in a way to put it correctly, is to increase your attachment to them. So once you increase your attachment to this sort of lifestyle, your old attachments disappear. This is a very interesting concept. Like, for example, when you're a kid, like a baby or just a few years old, your attachment that time was to all the simple toys which you had there. So, and you could not do without those toys because you're so attached to those toys there. But when you start growing, then you may have a bicycle there. And once you have a bicycle and you have an attachment to the bicycle, you do not have any attachment to the toys which you had as a baby, basically. So when you have a new attachment, the old attachment disappear as such. So as you keep growing, you have new attachments coming in your life. You may, when you start growing, you may be having attachment to travel or family or something like that. And once you have those attachments, your previous attachments disappear, basically. So the best way to make this other old attachment to disappear is to cultivate a new attachment. And the new attachment is spiritual growth and live a lifestyle of devotion, basically. So once you do that, you can see that old attachments will start disappearing. And once the old attachment starts disappearing, then you will not be so much bothered by the outcomes of results, basically. If you have a negative outcome or a positive outcome of your action, you will accept it much more easier than what you would not if you don't have a devotional lifestyle. So devotional lifestyle is the only way you can gain equanimity in life. So it's a very important step, gaining even mindedness towards any results you face in life. The last step, which is arpana buddhi, is a attitude of offering our actions to Ishwara. So what this means is that in the olden days, or maybe in these days, but not so much, but in the olden days, it was very prevalent to do yajna. Yajna means you set up a fire and you get your priests around you, and you you set up a fire in the yajna, and you pour rice, you pour ghee as into the fire, basically. So the reason you pour that ghee and fire into the rice into the fire is like you're offering your thank you to Ishwara. That's the only way you can communicate to Ishwara for all the blessings, maybe for getting good crops, for having children, or for finding a job, or your business being successful. All those things you thank God by performing yajna. So if you think about it, everything belongs to Ishwara. There's nothing which does not belong to Ishwara. Even in the yajna, if you talk about the rice, you talk about the ghee, the fruits which you are offering to the Ishwara, they all belong to Ishwara. So what is the thing which you can offer Ishwara? The only thing you can offer Ishwara is your actions, basically. Your action is the only thing you can offer to Ishwara as a thank you, mate. And when you offer your actions to Ishwara, and you undertake all actions with a prayerful attitude, even a simple mundane job of cleaning your house, or cleaning your utensils, or doing a job, or doing anything with a prayerful attitude, what you are doing is that you are offering your actions back to Ishwara. So that's what this is Arpana Buddhi means. This will ensure, if you are offering all the actions to Ishwara, it will ensure that you will not undertake any wrong actions there, because you are offering your actions to Ishwara. So obviously, when you're offering your actions to Ishwara, you cannot offer any action which is against dharma or any other negative attitude sort of thing. So the core of karma yoga is twofold: is to do action with arpana buddhi, and receive the results with prasada buddhi. So you offer actions with arpana buddhi, and you receive results with prasada buddhi. So that's the core of karma yoga. In fact, both these two attitudes are the two sides of a single coin, which is karma yoga. So these are the 4 steps you need to implement in karma yoga. So once you implement these steps of karma yoga, you can see there are a lot of benefits you can get. First is, since all your actions are dedicated to Ishwara, and in fact, Ishwara is acting through you, obviously to Ishwara to act through you, you need to completely surrender to Ishwara. So you are not doing action. In fact, Ishwara is doing the action through you. So once you do that, you will not face any karma, because the karma is not being done by your ego, but you have dedicated all your actions to Ishwara, and you surrender yourself to Ishwara. So Ishwara is literally doing the actions through you, basically. And so may not be an easy step to implement, but that's a step which is the goal to be achieved as such. And the other major benefit you can get of doing karma yoga is the purification of the mind. The mind is full of impurities, jealousy, passion, all sorts of negative attitudes, approaches are all part of the mind there. By doing karma yoga, you can purify your mind. Your mind becomes extremely pure, because you are giving your actions to Ishwara, and you are receiving your actions as a prasad from Ishwara. So you are completely surrendered yourself to Ishwara as such. So once you do have that hold on karma yoga, then the assimilating of the knowledge of the real self, of the jnana yoga, which I was mentioning earlier, the path, becomes much easier to understand your real self and how to reach your real self, to assimilate your real self becomes much easier. Without implementing karma yoga in a full way, assimilating this knowledge of the real self becomes almost impossible there. But once you do reach the real self, then you see what happens. Your ego dissolves into the real self there. And once your ego dissolves into the real self, you're really cutting your account, which you're cutting your link to your karma account. So you don't own the karma account anymore. So if you want to cut your link to your karma account, you have to start assimilating the knowledge of your real self. And the stepping stone to do that is karma yoga. And once you have understood the karma yoga and implement the approaches and attitudes of karma yoga, then you can be ready to understand your real self, and you can assimilate the knowledge of real self. Must becomes easier. And that's the only way you can cut your account linked to your karma account. Otherwise, you are stuck in the unending life cycle of life and death. So as a conclusion, just to 3 points, we do karmas by adding raga and dvesha to an experience. It's not, we don't do, interacting with the object is not karma. It is the adding of likes and dislikes to that object is what really karma is. And we're just seeing that we have an infinite number of karmas pending phalas or results as such. And the only way to delink your ego from pending karmas is to implement a life of karma yoga there. So karma yoga is a much bigger subject. These are the 4 core principles which I mentioned, which are the key core for implementing karma yoga in our day-to-day life there. And lastly, I just wanted to introduce my book again to people who are not aware of it. I've recently written a book called Science Meets Vedanta, and it has about 37 essays. It covers about 345 pages. The chapter on the karma yoga is also not a chapter of the Doctrine of Karma is part of that book. This book is available worldwide on Amazon, Flipkart. It's also available on Barnes and Noble online. It comes as a Kindle version, as a Kindle Unlimited, paperback, and hardcover there. And that's my contact. It's Jayant at staminteractive.com. So if you ever want to contact me, you can always do that. With that, my presentation is over. And if you have any questions, which I think I'm more than happy to answer. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and then Maya can ask the questions, read out the questions which are there. Maya, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Good evening.
Okay.
Can everyone see me?
No, Maya, your camera's on mute.
I don't know how it, I'm sorry about that.
Okay.
No, we can hear.
Okay, good.
Yes, but now you can also see me. Well,
Yeah.
actually, before my screen froze, there was a gentleman whose name Vijay Ganpule. He had asked a question, but it is no longer available to me because I had to log in into a different instrument. So if you can, Mr. Ganpule, if your question has not already been answered from the talk, please go ahead and ask your question.
You can unmute and ask. Yes.
Unmute yourself.
Thank you. The question was, we talked about the actions. What about actions that are unintentional or unknowingly happening?
Yeah. Like I mentioned to you, if ego is involved, then action is intentional, basically. If ego is not involved, then it is unintentional as such. If, like, for example, if you're walking on the road and you trample on a bug without knowing it is, there is no karma because your ego is not involved. But if you forcefully or if you intentionally step on that bug, then it is your ego is involved. Even if you see it and you know the bug is there and you still step on it, that your ego is involved there. But if you do the action without the ego involving, then there is no karma there as such. That's a basic rule, basically, for ego. The ego has to be involved. The ego has to say yes or no, like or dislike, for karma to come in.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Can I ask
Okay,
a
then-
question?
There's the next. I will read out the remaining questions that are on
All
the
right.
chat.
Oh,
If you have any further questions, please put them into the chat and they will be answered one
Oh,
by one.
okay. All right.
So the next question was by Mr. Tapan Kumar Banerjee, and he asks, is there any guideline methodology for differentiating between Papa Punya Karmas?
Yes, it's not an easy question to answer, like I mentioned to them, because there are a lot of gray areas in Papa and Punya Karmas. Yeah. So, like I mentioned, that non-violence is of the
Except
highest.
for Mr. Excuse me, Jayant, except for Mr. Banerjee, can everyone else mute themselves so that we don't disturb the flow of conversation? Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Sorry,
please
yeah,
continue.
sorry.
Jayant.
Yeah. So, the distinguishing between good karma and bad karma, the gray areas is always not that simple. But like I mentioned in my talk, we need to minimize the non-violent ahimsa towards either it could be in terms of action, it could be in terms of thought, it could be in terms of speech. So once you have many options, you have to choose an option which has minimum harm, minimum non-violence sort of thing. So it's completely rooting out non-violence is almost impossible, because even it happens in day-to-day life. But to minimize that is the goal of dharma, basically. Does that answer your question, Tapan?
Yes, please. Yes, please. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mm.
Maya, you can ask the next question.
Yes. There are still people joining, so I have to admit them before I speak any further. Sorry about that. Just okay. So the next question is from Meenu Mehta, from Miss Meenu Mehta. How to distinguish between old karma and new karma? And she also has another question: how to get rid of the ego? So the first one is distinguish between old and new karma.
There's no rule. It depends. Like I mentioned to you earlier, the most severe action you take will have a most severe result as such. And that severe result will have the most severe result will have, I'll go through the cosmic waveform. I'll take more time to fructify. There's no way to distinguish from which janam, the karmas you're facing right now, from which janam you're facing it from. Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay.
And
the
then
next
her
part,
next question was how to get rid of the ego.
Ego, like I mentioned to you, the only way you can get rid of ego is the 4 paths which I mentioned to you: karma yoga, jnana yoga, bhakti yoga, and raja yoga. And the karma yoga is a starting point to do action without ego, basically. And that you can do only if you can accept the results of your action like a prasad from God. And you also do action dedicated to God. If you do that, obviously your ego is not involved, because you're doing action for God, basically, and you are receiving the results from God. So once you inculcate that attitude, then your ego will slowly disappear, and the ego will not have much of an effect there. So you have to be egoless. Attachments also should not happen to goods. If you have, so the karma yoga, like 4 steps I mentioned to you, is a good starting point to get rid of ego, basically.
The next question is from just give me a minute. The next question is from Mr. Vishwajit Iyer, and he says, so karma yoga can be achieved through devotional lifestyle, which is bhakti yoga, or does bhakti mean something more than just being devotional?
Like I mentioned to you, all 4 paths are mixed. You can't say this is completely independent there. Devotional lifestyle is important to achieve karma yoga also. But then and that if the karma yoga itself leads to the goal of bhakti also. And if you do bhakti itself, to do a proper bhakti, you have to totally surrender to Ishwara there. And total surrender to Ishwara is a lifestyle of karma yoga also. So all the paths are really mixed around basically, but karma yoga is like a prerequisite to achieve the other goals. That's even jnana yoga, you need to understand your real self to achieve the final goal of karma yoga as such. So they are mixed together. You can't say they're totally separate or independent. Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so now the next question is from Mr. Madhav Kulkarni, and he says, from what I understand, karma yoga will prevent accumulation of future karmas. This is good. But what about sanchita karma? How do we clear it? Normal course will take many lifetimes. Is there a way to fast track it?
The only fast track is to cut your ego off and achieve self-realization. Because once you do self-realization, your ego melts into your real self, and there'll be no ego. And there's no ego, there's no karma account, and you'll be get rid of the karma. Only way to achieve that is to achieve self-realization. There's no other method other than achieving self-realization. So the final goal has to be moksha. And if you want to get rid of your karma account, which is, they say, is infinite number of karmas pending results. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, the next question is from Mr. Vishwajit Iyer, who has asked, what is actually involved in offering actions to Ishwara, in quotes? Is it a matter of an attitude to keep reminding oneself that every action taken is not me, the ego? However, many of our actions are ego-driven, aren't they?
Yeah, it's the action means you keep God into your mind when you take the action. Basically, you can't really literally, you can't take out an action and put it on a temple or something like that. It's the attitude, how you approach action. Basically, you think that you're offering this action to God, and once you offer any action to God, you make sure that your ego is not involved, because you don't want to take an action which will be negative. Ego could be involved, but then if the action is correct, then it should be okay, sort of thing, no? Because so the action is like we are doing a mundane job. Sometimes when you're doing a mundane job, you're cursing yourself. Oh, why should I be doing this mundane job? It's boring, this thing, that thing. But if you do the same job with a prayerful attitude, that I'm doing this job for God's sake, God has given me this chance to do this action, and you do this job with that sort of attitude. So the prayerful attitude, you take all your actions there. Even your boss, even if you do a job and your boss fires you in the morning for whatever reason, good reason or bad reason, maybe you got to take a prayerful attitude, basically. Maybe that he had a bad day in his house and he's being so resentful or something like that. So it's a question of accepting your action, the prasada, and you also do the action with a prayerful attitude as such.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, the next question is by Mr. Tilak Agarwal has said, thank you, Jayant, but I don't think he asked a question. So he's thanking you in general.
Thank you.
Okay.
He's my classmate. So thank you very much, Tilak. Yeah.
Then the next question is Miss Haripriya Munipalli, and she's asking, what happens when we intentionally kill a mosquito?
If you intentionally kill a mosquito, you will get a papa karma. But again, it will be a small papa karma, because it's the difference to the cosmic waveform is very minor. But you will definitely receive a papa karma. You can't get away from that. It is you are obviously killing something unintentionally, so you will suffer an action for that. But the papa would be small as compared to many other papas which we interact, which we could face, sort of thing. So it's a small papa, but papa is there, karma.
But what do you think that I should do at that point of time? is the best thing I can do.
I understand what you're saying. Then you have to face the consequence. Because if you do it intentionally, you have to face the consequence. Otherwise, you have to accept the bite, and you would accept what it bites, and it gets whatever it does. You have to accept that sort of thing. If you can't do that, you do that. It's unintentional. Intentional work you're doing. You have to face the papa karma. But it will be very small papa karma. That's how you are accumulating papa karmas, because you have done such actions in the past. Some this minor, sometimes it's a little bit more major, and you have to face the action basically. So that's why everyone has a mix of papa karmas and punya karmas. Nobody has 100% punya karmas. If he has 100% punya karmas, he would be self-realized anyway. So,
but at that point of time, if I think of Almighty and surrender my action to the Lord and do that action, what will happen to that?
It's a good question. I'm not sure. I think they say that if you do prayers and all that, you can reduce the number of you can't reduce the papa karmas. If the papa karmas are there, you increase the fold of punya karmas. Your mixture will change. If you do a prayerful attitude, and if you do kill the mosquito, you will suffer the papa karma, but your punya karmas also will increase because you're doing it with a prayerful attitude, this sort of thing.
Because why I'm saying this is, you know about Ambarisha, right? A story of Ambarisha.
Yeah.
When the Sudarshana Chakra was going after that Muni who has insulted Ambarisha, Lord Vishnu says that when Ambarisha was taking that water before that Muni came for taking his food, he was thinking only of me, and he doesn't have anything in his mind except thinking of me. So that is why I am saving him.
Yeah. So same thing like you're saying, prayerful attitude. That's exactly what you're trying to say, basically. No? It will definitely reduce the impact. I don't know if it is going to nullify the papa karma, but your punya karmas will increase dramatically if you're doing everything with a prayerful attitude as such. It's a gray area, and I don't know if I really have the right answer, because it's a gray area, basically.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Excuse me, but I think I can suggest something, which if any of you disagrees, please say so. I think when something like that happens, when you intentionally kill a mosquito, you can ask God's forgiveness and say that you did it for a particular reason, and just ask for forgiveness. So it will at least mitigate it, is what I believe. But I could be wrong.
They mitigate, yes, but you still have done the action. So that you have to suffer. You dilute it sort of in a way. I can understand. Yeah, okay, correct. Yeah, continue.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so now the question is from Mr. Alok Bharadwaj, and he says, I find it difficult to believe the idea of reincarnation and moksha. What does science suggest on these?
Science, I don't think has any answer to that, because science is looking at objects basically, and it is investigating objects as such. And the Doctrine of Karma is a subjective knowledge. It's a knowledge of the self and the self. So the way I look at it is that the science focus is not on that, but if you take the understanding that every action must have a reaction, if that is clear, then any action you do must have a reaction, basically. That is one thing which even science agrees. Newton's third law of motion says every action must have an equal and opposite reaction. So if action is there, the reaction must happen. The question is that when will the reaction come? That is what obviously Doctrine of Karma also is not very clear. It says that it can come this lifetime, it can come in 10 minutes, it can come in the next lifetime. But one thing is, I think you may agree with me saying that every action must have a reaction. If the reaction is not complete, then you must face the results. And to face the result, if it doesn't happen in this lifetime, it must happen in the future lifetime. So that's the Vedanta's method of understanding why good things happen to bad people, and that's etc. etc. So the Doctrine of Karma, in a way, is a belief system. Nobody can prove it or disprove it, but it seems so logical and correct that does make sense. That's what I think. But again, it's a belief system. You can't, there's no proof of reincarnation. But I believe that reincarnation happens because you have pending karmas, and that karmas have to fructify. I hope I've tried to answer that question.
Yes, sir, to quite an extent. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Alok.
Okay, I'm looking for the next question. Just give me a minute. Okay, the next question is from Meenu Mehta, and she says, "Sir, what happens when violence is inevitable, as in war?" That
Yeah.
I added that on.
Yeah, I understand. So that again, we have, if you take about, understand Bhagavad Gita, and that's the action, it's a dharma, war becomes a dharma basically, because you're fighting against the evil part of it. Then becomes your duty and responsibility to do that basically. In those circumstances, if you're doing action for, taking an action for good reason, it obviously then it has a papa, it has a punya karma only. In the same way, like the thieves running and hiding in your house, and when this the merchant come to your house, and the thieves chasing you, and they ask you where he is, you tell them a lie because you don't want because the thief is want to steal his things or maybe kill him also. So obviously you told a lie there. So under the circumstances of if it is for a good cause, then it is, you won't have any, it will be a punya karma only. But defining that is again, sometimes can be gray area. Who can define that it is correct or wrong? Someone might say, I did a war in right action. The other person said, I did for the right action. That again is not easy to decipher. But like the Second World War, the action and reaction was quite clear. Hitler was the aggressor and everyone else was the defender sort of thing. So that defending becomes your duty as such, and that becomes part of dharma then to defend, and the responsibility as such. So these are gray areas, but again, we need to ask advice of experts who know this subject and understand what is correct, what is wrong, and in those circumstances. But what Vedanta teaches, you need to minimize harm to the maximum extent as possible. Yeah, I hope I have answered your question in some way.
Sir,
Yeah.
yes, thank you so much. I just have a counter question, sir.
Yeah.
How do I decide whether the violent action is my dharma, or I should accept the violence perpetrated on me as in keeping with the prasad buddhi?
Yeah, these are, we're getting to the nitty-gritty of karma yoga. These all actually are very gray areas basically, because there's no clear-cut answer to these questions. Really, there's no clear-cut answer to these questions as such. It is what you do with to minimize harm is the goal, but what is right or wrong is who decides that who's right and who's wrong. You think you're right, the other person might think you're wrong, and then the question goes on and on. So it's really, you have to ahimsa, non-violence, to minimize is the final goal. But you cannot accept, like even in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna and the Pandavas, they try to negotiate with the Kauravas. They told them, first we'll give you half the kingdom, then they say we'll give you the village, then they say we'll give you, they said we'll give you, they kept increasing the offer, and they kept seeing that everything was being rejected. And then the final goal was, there was no other choice but to go to war, even in Mahabharata as such. Because when Krishna and the Pandavas were negotiating with the Kauravas, they started off saying, you take half the kingdom, you take this, you take that. They were still not accepting it, sort of thing. So finally, there was no other action but to have a war, basically. So under those circumstances, when you have given up, tried all the other options, and then there's no choice, then you have to defend yourself and have to reach your goal, do the right thing, basically. Then it becomes your duty then. And then you can't shrug from your duty. Yeah.
Can I say something, make a comment?
Yeah.
If that is okay with you, Jayant?
Yeah.
I just wanted to say that when violence is perpetrated against you, then you have to fight back. Like, for example, if a woman is being raped, she will do whatever she can to defend herself. So that you cannot just accept that kind of violence being done to you.
No, of course not. Of course not. So, so that, because obviously not, you can't, that's obviously that other person is the aggressor, you have to defend yourself. But if you have to negotiate, what I'm trying to say in terms of Pandavas and Kauravas, before the war started, they tried to negotiate, and when there was nothing was happening, that's the time when the war really started as such, because they know the option is left then. When the situation you are mentioning, it's already happening, so you have to take action to defend yourself. Yeah. Any other question, Maya? Or
yeah, there are questions. So is that fine? We'll move on now. Is that okay, Miss Meenu?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So next question is from Mohan, and he says, we see many people around us who do a lot of wrong things. That is Papa Karma, but are leading a happy life. Is that because of Punya Karma of the past life?
Yes, because everyone has a mixture of Punya Karmas and Papa Karmas, and they must have done some good deeds in the past lives, because you don't know. So because of that, those results are fructifying right now. So bad things, good things are happening to bad people in this lifetime, and good things are happening, bad things are happening to good people, all because of your Sanchita Karma, which is a mixture of Papa and Punya Karmas. So mix what someone comes in this life, no one has control. If the mix is in such a way that there are more Papa Karmas, more Punya Karmas, and then he'll live a much happier life. And a person who has more Papa Karmas, his life will be a struggle. Maybe next janam, next life, the mixture could differ again. Mohan, does that answer your question? Yeah, I think he's not there. Or he's...
Yeah. The next question is from Dr. GBK Rao, and he asks,
Mohan, is that okay? What I answered?
Mohan. Yeah, it's okay.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mohan. Nice to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too.
Yeah.
Dr. GBK Rao to everyone, and he asks, is it grandparents and parents' karmas, does it affect their children?
Because they're living in what way? Karma means what? In that, because he has come with his own karmas, and he has his plus and minus points which he has to go through. The grandparents and parents have their own karmas; they have to go through. Maybe it is if the grandparents are extremely rich, and he's having a nice lifestyle, the son or grandson is having good life, because he's come with a good mix of karmas in this life, and because of which he has some happy parents and he's leading a happy life. If his parents are very cruel or hard on him, he's come with his own karmas, because of which his parents are hard of him. He has to suffer his karmas, and his parents being good or bad depends on his karmas basically. If his karmas have more Papa Karma, he may have bad parents. If his karmas are good karmas, he may have good parents. So good or bad really depends on what he has to suffer basically. Does that answer, Mr. Rao?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next question is from Mr. Vikram Sirur, and it's not really a question. He hopes to catch up on portions of the talk which he missed out. So I think we will be sending a copy of the recording to everyone.
Yeah, we will send the recording. Yeah.
Yeah. The next question is from Vaishali Amin, and she asks, if Sanchita is pending, karma is pending, then does Karma Yoga in one birth eliminate karma only in that one birth, or does it apply to Sanchita Karma as a whole?
If you read Moksha, then self-realization, when you understand your inner core, not only understand, but you assimilate the knowledge. Understand theoretically is not good enough. You have to assimilate the knowledge, have direct experience of your real self. Once you achieve that, then there's no karmas left because your ego is not there. If your ego is not there, there's no pending account of the ego. And then you live that life through your real self, basically. So if you have, if you want to, if you achieve self-realization, all your account of ego from all your past life also gets delinked, basically. The account is gone. You have no karma account left. For that, you need to achieve self-realization. You got to understand your real core, and you got to assimilate that knowledge. Nirvana, that's a word which is normally used. I hope I have answered your question.
Namaste, Jayant ji. Yes,
Yeah.
you have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vaishali. Yeah.
Thank you.
The next question is from Rohit Sharma. I think that I'll just check if how many questions are there. Just a minute, because we are kind of running out of time. So I will.
There's one lady who wanted to ask.
This is the last question.
Okay.
This is the last question. It says, how Pancha Maha Yajna helps in balancing the karma cycle?
Basically, if you do prayers, any type of prayers you do, you are increasing your punya karmas. So you're increasing the mix of your papa and punya karmas. The ratio of your punya karmas go up. And if you have a larger mix of punya karma, then you will lead a much more happier life. So leading a life, increasing prayers and meditation and those prayerful attitude always increases your punya karmas. And if you increase your punya karmas, then your mix is improves, basically. So in that way, it does reduce the impacts of your negative impacts of your negative papa karmas.
And there's one gentleman who's asking, will you make the slides available to participants, please?
Yeah, I will be putting up the recording, but if you want the slides, if you can just send your email, then I will make sure I can send the slides to you. But otherwise, the recording of this session, we will be putting on YouTube in the next 24 hours.
Okay. So we have taken. I believe there was someone wanting to ask a question. Please go ahead and ask.
You can unmute.
Unmute yourself and ask your question.
Yeah, this is Kaveri Jayant.
Hi, Kaveri, how are you? Yes. So a long time. Very nice to see you. Nice to hear from you.
Yeah, right. It was a wonderful lecture. I am very much interested in spirituality and sort of Bhagavad Gita and all the Upanishads and things. So I was asking this question: what happens to a person who did not finish his karma and he is born into the yoni of an animal? Animals, do they also have the karma and karma bhalas and all that? Because they are not doing anything intentional.
So they say that what Vedanta teaches, that animals, they're only to play off their karmas. They don't accumulate karmas. They're given a set of karmas to play off. They don't accumulate because they don't have an ego, they say. I don't know. Some people dispute that, but they say that animals, they come with a certain karmas. Either they're born as a dog who's born in a nice homely house and he's been petted and pampered. He obviously is having a good karmas to go there. Or there could be a stray dog who is has to struggle day in, day out. He has come with a lot of papa karmas. So they're giving away they're playing off their karmas, basically. They're not accumulating karma. That's what Vedanta teaches. But I don't know how correct it is that if dogs have ego or don't have egos. So they basically are animals in general. They are just playing off their karmas. They've got a set of karmas which they play off. And once they finish their karmas, they go back and they may take a different life, maybe a human life or different animal life, depends, sort of thing, you know. The humans definitely accumulate karmas, but dogs and animals, they say they don't accumulate our karmas.
Yeah, I have lots of questions about this Punarjanma and things like that. Maybe one day we can just discuss
You can
it.
call me. You can call me.
privately.
It'll be
Yes, I'll do that.
yes.
Thank you.
Very nice talking to you.
And I have two doubts. One is Punarjanma. The other thing is the existence of Ishwara. Who is this Ishwara?
Yeah.
Because that's very difficult to understand. Ishwara is a person, Ishwara is just an energy, or what is that?
I will next. I'm going to have a webinar which I will discuss about Ishwara and Brahman and Guru, the three forms of reality, and we'll discuss that in a lot of detail. But if you have any questions, you can please call me, and I will love to answer them.
I'll do that. Thank you so much. Thank you,
say hello
Maya.
to Sachi. Say hello to Sachi.
Thank you.
Yes, Sachi is here watching too.
I must introduce Sachi to everyone. Sachi is my first boss in Philips.
Come on.
Very, very old friend of mine. Yeah. Nice. So nice to meet you, Sachi.
Jayant, I only have one sentence.
Yeah.
I admire the transformation that you have gone through from what we were together to what I am seeing now is an amazing change. And I am truly touched by what all you have said so far. It's amazing.
Thank
from
you, Sachi.
Our own time to now a retired life far away, this has been a wonderful journey.
Yeah,
and to be in touch with you has still been more. That the journey is incomplete. We will continue to do that.
Definitely. Please give me a call anytime. I'd love to talk to you. You can call me anytime, and we will discuss anytime you want. Thank you, Sachi.
Thank you.
Talk soon.
Also, I see Ashok Chabra there.
Yeah.
Kind courtesy, his intervention and associations, I have been able to get in touch with a lot of old people. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sachi.
Take care.
Okay, bye.
All the best. All the best.
Okay. I now declare this meeting closed, and I hope you enjoyed the question and answer session as well as the talk. And hopefully we'll see you in the next webinar that Jayant does. Thank you.
True. I look forward to meeting you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Enjoyed a lot. Very insightful.